We got a question from chat room. King J wants to know, he says, according to your Glory Wrestling profile, you said Mickie Knuckles is the hardest hitting woman in professional wrestling. Do you still believe that, or have you faced a harder hitting woman since?
I would say that undoubtedly Mickie Knuckles, Amy Lee, and Mercedes Martinez are in a three-way tie for who hits hardest. And I don't want to be the person that has to stand there and take another hit from either of them to break the tie.
Yeah, Mickie is one tough chick. I tell you that.
I adore her, and I got to work her twice in singles matches, and she beat the crap out of me both times, in a good way. Like, she wasn't unsafe. There was never a point where I thought, she's trying to kill me. But I mean, she by far pushed me to the limit.
Yeah, she's, as her name says, Mickie Knuckles. She'll give you the knuckles, all right.
I got the knuckles. I got the headbutts. I got the drop kick square to my face. Like, yeah. I remember leaving the ring after our first match, and I'm walking to the back, and Ian Rotten, who trained her, was standing in the back, and we walked back, and he's got this huge smile on his face, and he's shaking his head yes at me, and I just looked at him, and he goes, "How do you feel?" And I go, "Like I got fucking hit by a train." And he goes, "Really?" Because she was kind of being soft on you. She must like you. And I'm thinking to myself, if that was her being soft, I would hate to be the person she doesn't like.
I'm serious. If that's just soft, she's tough broad.
That was the first match we were scheduled to do. The second match, literally, I got called the day of the show. She was supposed to wrestle somebody else, and they backed out of the show. And they call me and they go, "Do you want to wrestle Mickie again?" And I was at work, and I happened to be sick that day. And I was like, ugh. Like, I don't feel good as it is. I was like, well, I don't feel good. I was like, but, I'll come down and work Mickie. And I went down, and Mickie and Ian had heard that I was coming to fill in, but I was sick. And so I got there, and the first thing Mickie said to me was, they told me you're sick. And I was like, yeah, my stomach's killing me, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, "I promise you I'll take care of you out there." And I was like, that's why I'm here, because I trust you. And we got in the ring, and we had a great match. It wasn't as great as our first one, but it was still, a good match. And she did. She took very good care of me. I got to the back. She was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yup." And for King, Mercedes does not try to kill people. She just tries to win matches. There's a difference.
Yeah, well, I think what he means is that her matches, it comes off like she is really trying to beat somebody down to get that win.
She's somebody, she again is one of my best friends. And she's somebody that was trained very similar to me. She was trained by Kevin Knight up in Connecticut. She was trained with a bunch of the guys. And those of us that were trained that way kind of almost work like the guys. Yeah. I always say the greatest compliment I ever got in this business was we were in Florida doing a show for Op. It was before he moved down there. We just went down there to do a spot show in Florida. And it was myself, Talia, who you guys would probably know as Velvet Sky, and this girl Zip that was from down there. And we were doing a three-way match, and down with us was a wrestler by the name of Boogaloo, who some of you guys might have known was Homicide's partner in the Natural Born Sinners. And Boogaloo is notoriously known, he hates women's wrestling. Hates it. And so we get down there, and we do the match, and I come back, and there was a huge window up top that the guys could watch from. And I go back up, and he, again, he's standing there, huge smile on his face, just shaking his head at me, and I'm like, oh, now I'm going to have to hear it from him. And I'm like, what? And he just started shaking his head. He goes, I can't stand women's wrestling. I was like, I know. And he goes, but I love watching you work. And I go, what? And he goes, because you work like a dude. He's like, you and Mercedes Martinez, you work like dudes. And that to me was the best compliment I've ever gotten.
Yeah, because not many of the guys in the business to this day, which is just crazy to me, not many of them are big on women's wrestling, but they see girls like yourself, Mercedes Martinez, or anybody that was brought up in the training of where they worked were more so guys go hard at each other in the ring. They earn respect from them, say, wow, I really need to pay attention to these girls. And it goes the same lines of over in Japan with the Joshis. The Joshis have such like a high regard and women's wrestling because they work just like the guys. They have no mercy on each other, and they go to great lengths just to win a match.
Exactly. I mean, it comes from the intensity, and, it also comes from the way you carry yourself. That gets a lot of the guys respect.
Yeah. Now this is the next question is, back in 2007, you faced THAI, teaching his almighty influence, in a bitch in a box match. Yeah, Ty. In a bitch in a box match for. I
named that match. How awesome is that? And that was as a joke.
Really?
That was for women's extreme wrestling. Yeah, that was for women's extreme wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Which at the time was being run by a guy by the name of Dan Cowell. And the reason he didn't see me on a lot of those, as a matter of fact, I think that was I only worked two shows for them in the ring, because literally they paid me to run the back. And when Dan ran it, I would have a little bit of input into booking and this, that, and the other thing. And he said to me, he goes, I want to do something like a casket match. And I said, okay. And he goes, but I want to call it a casket match. He was real big on gimmicky names for stuff. And I jokingly threw out there, because what is a casket match? You put the person in the casket. So I jokingly threw out there, I was like, what do you want to call it? Put the bitch in a box match? And my joke became what we call the match. And I didn't even know I was doing that match until I got to the building, and he goes, yeah, you work in Italian to put the bitch in a box match. And I thought he was ribbing me, just about because I'd said it, but that's how they announced it. I was like, oh my God. And Dan was just sitting there laughing at me. I was like, get out of here. I was like,
your joke became a reality.
The worst part is, if you watch that match, Ty never goes in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Roxy Cotton goes in the box. Ty went on top. The reason for that was they booked me versus Ty in the put the bitch in a box match. They booked me to win, but Ty's claustrophobic, so I couldn't put her in the box. Yeah, so they wanted me to win. They booked us this match, and I can't put Ty in the box because she's claustrophobic. She would freak out. So we ended up having a call for the Roxy run-in where I could put Roxy in the match and then put Ty on the lid to keep it down.
I remember watching that match and saying, how come Ty is not getting in the box?
Exactly. I'd tease it like I was going to throw her in so Roxy could come out, but yeah. And then that match was awesome because I was managed by Becky Bayless, who some people may know as Cookie from TNA.
Mm-hmm. But it's really smart how you guys worked around it, because thank God you actually didn't put her in the box, and knowing that she has a phobia like that,
Hey, look, I'll be honest. Had it been somebody that I didn't like, I might have just done it anyway. But I love Ty, so I would not. The minute she said to me, I'm claustrophobic, I can't, I can't go in the box. I was like, okay. I was like, we'll find a way around this.
Mhm. Poor Ty. Is WEW?
Wait, hold on, real quick. You watched that match?
Yes.
Here's the hysterical part for you. While we're brawling through the crowd, if you notice at one point we went in the men's bathroom, that was literally done because as many times as I'd been in the arena, I'd never seen the inside of the men's bathroom. So literally as we're brawling around the arena, I was like, oh, let's go to the men's room. I always just wanted to see what the men's room looked like. I was like, come on. So we brawled into the men's room. There was a guy at the urinal taking a piss while we brawled in with cameras behind us. We're like, whatever. But that was done just because I'd never seen what the men's room looked like. I was like, okay.
So you had a tour of the venue during a match. I never heard of that before. That's different.
I was like, I've never seen the men's room. Let's brawl in there.
Yeah, that's different. Hey, you got to figure out where it is one of these times. Oh, there it is. This is what it looks like. Is WEW still active?
No. Dan Cowell actually moved away. WEW is run by Dan Cowell, handled all the booking and stuff. There was a guy by the name of Greg Begarosi and Steve Carroll. The three of them owned the company. Mm-hmm. And Dan moved away, and Dan was going to get married. So Greg and Steve Carroll still owned the company. They ran one more show. And after Dan left, they turned the booking over to Francine, the Queen of Extreme. We ran one more show, and then that was it. They just decided not to run anymore.
Yeah, because I haven't seen anything about WEW. WEW, for people that are not really sure what I'm saying, because, you know, there's World Extreme Wrestling and all this stuff. WEW means Women's Extreme Wrestling, and then they were known as Women's Erotic Wrestling. And I haven't really heard anything about them since maybe 2007, 2008. And a lot of the girls that was working there, like, you know, April Hunter and Talia Madison and Amber O'Neil, Tracy Brooks, and, you know, the list goes on and on. A lot of those girls left and were signed by TNA or went off to other promotions and stuff. So I was always wondering, like, did they just shelve the promotion, or is it still around and no one really knows much about it?
No, I mean, they haven't run any shows in a couple of years. They kind of shelved it, and then Steve Carroll started running another fed called I think it's the UWF out of New York. It's like a mixture of like wrestling and like rappers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. When he started running that, we just, you know, never ran another WW show again.
Yeah. We got another question from chat room. King J wants to know, is there an opponent who you haven't gotten the chance to work with you wish you could?
I've always wanted to work April Hunter one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
I did get to work her. I got to work her in a 5-on-5 match, but I don't think we actually did anything in that match together, me and her. And then I got to work her in a mixed 6-person in New York, and we had so much fun together. She's always somebody I would have liked to have worked one-on-one. I always said I wanted to work Lufisto one-on-one. I was actually booked to do that for Dangerous Women of Wrestling, and that show ended up getting canceled, so me and Lufisto never got to work one-on-one. I'd like to work Kelly Skater from Australia.
She's good.
I love that girl. I'd love to work Mia Yim.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think who else is there. Wouldn't mind working Christina Bonieri. I wouldn't mind working Kimberly one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think if there's anybody else really. I know there's people that I'm missing that I would love to work. Yeah, somebody should book me versus me again. She's in Japan right now. She signed a contract, but somebody should book it. I know I'm going to forget people and I'm getting heat for it later. I'm like, oh, what, you didn't want to work me?